Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Classic Rock and Prog Almanac. Today with my friend Peter Turner.
Hello, nice to be back.
Yeah, likewise. And myself, Tim Appleton. Sean can't be with us tonight because his laptop's packed up. But we're hoping to have some. We're hoping to have some developments on that front this week. Now, today we're going to do something a bit different. This is theoretically the first in our what we're calling our fantasy albums series. It could be first, and it could be the last. Doesn't go well. So today, what we're doing: what if the White Album were a double, but not the one that it actually is? Right? So that's to say, a lot of people contemplate the White Album as a single album. It's a sort of classic trope, isn't it, in rock music discussions. So we thought we'd deconstruct that idea and do it as a double, but a different double. In other words, what is our respective fantasy track listing for the White Album? I mean, in a sense, I think all of this is just an excuse for us to talk about the White Album, right?
Yeah. Another angle.
Okay, so it goes without saying, I think, that we're doing an LP. You know, not a CD. You know,
right? Vinyl.
Vinyl. You know, not a CD. That great lacuna in the history of recorded music, the CD. Because
and it's significant, isn't it? Because this is, when we talk about track ordering, flipping vinyl is significant. It required effort, and it was a break in time. And CDs never appreciated that, did they? They have the most awful, jarring ways of just sticking stuff together, and they don't always do the track orders even correct. But
that's right.
It is a different experience.
It's a sort of thought experiment, really. So we're putting ourselves back in that, on that fateful day in Abbey Road or wherever it was, where they were mixing all of this together. Would we have done it differently, right? And so obviously that doesn't. I mean, because the CDs were a completely different proposition, weren't they? And no band, I think, ever really worked out how to fill a CD properly. So, we're doing the four sides of vinyl, orthodox, old school. Now, before we begin, Peter, where would you sort of place the White Album in the Beatles' album ranking? To put it another way, do you think it's their best album or not, or what?
You know what? Now, having gone through it, raked through the thing, and then got all my tracks together. And one of the beauties of streaming things is you can put your own playlist together and things. Is that this album is like really good. It's a really good album. It's totally compelling from beginning to end, barring maybe a few hiccups here and there, a few bumps in the road. But it's just there's something about it which just drives on, and it's brilliantly programmed, probably is what it is, which is a bit ironic because here we are, about to sort of reprogram the whole thing. But at the same time, it's the one album that doesn't seem to have any sort of cohesiveness. It's weird. It's like it sort of works, but it shouldn't work. You know what I mean? It's like it's got this kind of. It's the way I see it. I've always seen it. It was like up to Pepper. When you get to Sergeant Pepper, everything at that point had been a sort of whole, like a whole idea, and despite whatever the conflicts were, it was a one idea produced onto an album. It had a feel, sort of heading in one direction. And then when Brian Epstein dies, it's probably, this is one of those things, isn't it? What if Brian Epstein hadn't died? But it's like the chaos just breeds chaos, doesn't it? And I feel like this is kind of what the White Album is. It's like the chaos that came after they were left, to get on with it, and this is what you get, But it always felt like, if you sort of see it visually, like a sort of ball of strength that had sort of grown and grown up to Sergeant Pepper, and then it explodes, and all these things, that were hiding inside, the diversity of their ideas suddenly was out there, like it had just exploded, and it just becomes this monster thing, this album with so many different areas and bits that are suddenly explored, which sort of draws back when you get to Abbey Road. Actually, it sort of becomes something else, but it's much more cohesive. The next album, it suddenly has a sound. It's like it's looking to the future. But the White Album's like some boil had burst or something suddenly, and everything was out suddenly. It's a bizarre thing, but I have to say, it is one of my favourites. Sorry, to answer your question, yeah, I think it is.
You're thinking like in terms of like the Big Bang, right? Just sort of enormous explosion, and then everything after that becomes incredibly dispersed.
Yeah, you could never put it back in the box once, it's like Pandora's box. Yeah, it'd all come out. But I think also just this idea of, they'd held it together to that point almost, hadn't they? They'd held everything together and whatever they were doing, and they were so revolutionary, and then it just suddenly exploded into these various areas. It's like almost everything on this album has its own kind of area, doesn't it? Nothing seems to link to anything else. And this is the weirdness about trying to reprogram the album, is that I'm not convinced there is it's like it's like a billion combinations, isn't it, this album, and which one works? Does it ever work? And this is one of the things we'll have to struggle with, and that you must have struggled with going through it, is the programming on this album so random, but we're just so used to it that we think it is that way because that's how it's always been. But actually, does anything follow anything on this album? I don't know. It's an interesting question.
Interesting, yeah. I mean, I think you're right. Mathematically, probably there's at least a billion possible combinations given the number of tracks. I mean, that's not a joke. That's literally must be mathematically true.
And one of those combinations is Why Don't We Do It in the Road starts the album.
Yeah, imagine that. So,
yeah.
But I think, yeah, you're right. It's interesting that, isn't it? Because I wonder whether that's why it was called the. I wonder why that was called. If that's why it was called the Beatles. Because you're right. It's an interesting thought. Like that, all the albums up to this point had sort of concepts, didn't they? And I think Sgt. Pepper was probably the culmination of all that. It was an actual concept. And then with this one, it's like, oh, what are we even doing here? Who even are we?
Yeah.
And maybe that's why, blank cover, generic title, because it's like, this is, us, warts and all, to quote, Oliver Cromwell. You know what I mean? And that might be an interesting thought. I mean, I think, again, I often quote Ian MacDonald, Revolution in the Head. And he said that this was a triumph of programming, this album. And what he meant by that, of course, is that Pepper was the last great Beatles album, because that's his thesis, right? And he's saying that, like, they managed to sort of scrape an album together here, but, it could very easily have not worked at all. And I think probably what he means by that, or the way I've always interpreted that, is the last side is slightly weak. So they managed to sort of like force enough good stuff into the first three sides that by then you don't care anymore. I'm not saying it's weak exactly, but it's like, that's in some ways on the original version. I find the fourth side the weakest side, although, we will come back to that. I think I would say, in answer to my own question that I didn't ask myself, that I think this is perhaps their most rewarding album. Albeit not their best, perhaps. I won't say which one is the best yet, in case we decide to come back to it later on. But I think it's something to do with the fact that it's a double, I think. So they're really stretching out. It's a big project, bigger than anything they'd undertaken up to that point. You could interpret that as you were saying, as a sort of dispersion, and a lack of focus. But in a way, that's part of the charm of it, I think. You don't have to wait too long for something very interesting to come along, even if not all of it works, It's
almost like the diversity of genres requires more space, doesn't it? I mean, people say, oh, what would it be as a single album? I'm sure you could put together, a version of it, but you'd miss out on a few golden bits and pieces that really need that extra space to sit in, don't they?
That's right. This is a bit like... what's it called? It's like Tales from Topographic Ocean syndrome, isn't it? We've basically got enough for three sides. So what do we do? Well, do we edit it down, or do we stretch it out? Yeah. Let's stretch it out, And this is the result, Okay, right, good. I would also say, by the way, I think it's one of the greatest double albums of all time. This, it's actually not easy to put a good double album together, and I think they've done a pretty good job.
No.
This is a pretty good attempt. let's start with some Imperial facts, if you don't mind. This is the 9th studio album by the Beatles, and of course their only double. It's called The Beatles, or colloquially The White Album. It was recorded May to October 1968 and released in November of the same year. Produced by Big George Martin at Abbey Road and Trident in London. I think perhaps sometimes they were working in 2 studios at once, you know. And what else? It went to #1 everywhere, this album. So the idea that the Beatles were, popular is not just a retroactive fiction. I mean, it was actually true. Yeah.
And actually following up Pepper, of course, in terms of the sales of that's pretty impressive, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, presumably less people would have bought it if it's a double, but I mean, more money, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's have just a word on the cover. I mean, we really need Sean for this, but since his laptop's broken. What did you want to say anything on the cover, Peter?
I'd be interested to see what Sean would say about the cover, actually, because there's nothing on it. Basically, I mean, the cover is an interesting one, isn't it? Because Sgt. Pepper was the absolute pinnacle, wasn't it, of sort of art for their, it sort of built up to this moment of, it's actually a cover. It's not doesn't just have to be us. It needs to be something that catches the eye. That's a work of art, and it's incredibly colourful, and they're all on it. And so it's sensational in that way. And then this is the absolute opposite. In fact, the last, the Pepper album is kind of Sgt. Pepper, isn't it? That's the idea. It's like it's not us actually. So not only have you got that, it's like a different band with a blazing, colourful cover. You've got the absolute antithesis of that, which is they're called the Beatles, and don't forget it, because the album is called the Beatles, and there's absolutely nothing on it. So it's this weird switch around, isn't it? A complete diverse opposites, and they run, sequentially. It's like, how many bands move on that fast? It's amazing, isn't it, really? I did check about, double albums, because I thought, well, this is fairly early for the sort of double album thing. And Freak Out, which you'll know, obviously, was a double album in the rock world, and Blonde on Blonde. But there's not, by Bob Dylan, but there's not many sort of rock double albums at that point. But it wasn't a new idea. It was also checking the images of the album covers. It's the first one where they're not on it, and in fact, it's the only album where they don't appear on the front. Right. So in whatever guise, Yellow Submarine, painted, drawn, whatever, they're always on the front cover of their albums, apart from this one. So that says something as well. There's a hell of a lot of pictures inside, though, of them.
Yes, there's posters, isn't there? I think Paul McCartney had something to do with putting that together, sort of in dialogue with the artist, who I think was a pop artist, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's an interesting thought, isn't it? Like, you're right, it's ironic. This is the first album called The Beatles, and they're not on it.
Precisely, it's a real statement, isn't it? And yet they don't even appear.
I mean, the only thing I wanted to say on the cover is I think it's got a touch of the Malevich, this idea of the Russian supremacists. So it's the idea of white square on white background. Right. It's like in the sense, to what extent is something different from itself, basically. Right. And the sort of the white square here is the catalogue number, right? Because you've got a completely white album sleeve, but they're singularized by a catalogue number, which is also white, and of course that split between something in itself evokes Tim's Pedantry Corner coming up, the split subject of psychoanalysis, right? And that also made me think of, because the working title for this album was a Doll's House, right? And a Doll's House, of course, evokes Freud's primal scene, the sort of child's playroom, where certain subjective desires and drives get kind of played out and then kind of like suppressed.
I think it would have been a great name for that album, to be honest.
I do as well.
Yeah.
I was going to come back to that later on, so maybe we can put that aside for the moment. But I think that it's actually a very appropriate name for the album. But
well, I got because I think it was about the only one I didn't have on vinyl. When it sort of came out and they remastered it or whatever, It was on vinyl. I sort of bought a copy, but what's really annoying is they've done it exactly as they could, no serial number. And then on the back it just says in black, stereo. It's like, I mean, did you really have to stamp a black word stereo on the back of a completely white album cover? It's just never ceases to amaze me who's left to do this and doesn't say that will look ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, they used to do things like put stickers, like sleeves, plastic sleeves with stickers on, so that they could sort of kind of, give the relevant information without interrupting the artwork. But
stickers you would never be able to get off.
Right, that's right. All right, good. Well, I suppose people know, by the way, the story that Family, another British band of the period, did an album called A Doll's House. That's why they didn't use it. I mean, that's a famous story, isn't it?
Right.
I wonder if that was the only reason.
Yeah.
Who knows? Someone will know, but not us. Yeah. All right, good. Now, without further ado, let's get into the tracks then. If you like, I'll start off. And I think, what did I want to say about? First of all, before I begin, I'm going to do my side one, then you do your side one, my side two, your side two, etc. And then at the end we'll summarise, I think. But before we begin, I think mine comes out. I've calculated about 82 minutes, right? That's right. To say 20 to 21 minutes a side, which seems normal to me. I mean, the original album actually has around 23 minutes per side, which I think is inordinately long for an LP, for technical reasons. I mean, they used to have trouble fitting all the grooves on. And it's surprising that such an early album is so packed. I mean, 23 minutes is practically the length of a whole Beach Boys album. From the same period. So I think that's strange. So I've made the most of this exercise in order to edit it down slightly. Also, this is going to be really boring, all this, but I've tried to respect, as far as possible, the sort of internal politics of the Beatles, right? In other words, I haven't just made this all Paul McCartney songs, right? Right. You'll see what I mean as I go through. That for me, that might have an effect on the sort of quality, but I think it's probably an important thing to do. I've tried to respect the spirit of the original album in that sense. Right. Especially the Lennon-McCartney dialectic. Yeah. I haven't actually also made too many changes. I've kind of tweaked it, right? Because why mess with success? But there are some changes that I felt were necessary. So that's what I've done.
Right.
I also felt that some great tracks were excluded, outtakes, and some amazing singles, of course. Hey Jude, Lady Madonna. But I worked on the principle of I haven't actually included most of those because I thought, what's the minimum we need to make this album really, pop? That was my lemma. And also because I think it's nice to have some separate singles, to indicate kind of creative abundance. Okay.
Well, I have to say then, I think I've probably taken a hatchet to the album then because I've pretty much rearranged the whole thing.
Well, that's interesting. That's good then because it means we've got two totally different approaches, right? In fact, my revised track listing might seem somewhat unadventurous, but as I say, I've done enough to it to satisfy myself, as it were, right?
Yes. At last.
Finally, all right, so let's begin with side one. So I've got Back in the USSR, number 1, track 2, Dear Prudence, track 3, Obla Di Obla Da, track 4, Wild Honey Pie, track 5, The Continuing Story of Bungalow Bill, track 6, While My Guitar Gently Weeps, track 7, Happiness is a Warm Gun. It's going to be difficult for both of us to kind of process what the other one's saying, isn't it, in this exercise? Okay, so, in other words, I've pared down the side length a bit, right. And thereby I've cleaved to the sort of classic number of Beatles tracks per side, i.e. 7, right? It was amazing that they packed so much into each track, and got it done normally in about 2.5 minutes. This was true for their whole career. It's incredible. Yeah. I mean, some of the tracks on this album feel like suites, like SUITES suites.
Yes.
And then you realise it only lasted less than 3 minutes, which is astonishing. And that allows them normally to get 7 on a side, right? I think pop, rock changed later on in that respect. Songs got longer, didn't they? Now, I'm going to go through it a bit. I don't know exactly how you're going to do this, Peter, but I'm going to follow my own compass here. Back in the USSR, I think, is a perfect opener, right? It's an interesting cause, and, I love this parodic reference to the Cold War. Would it have been better with Ringo on drums, possibly? And is there too much musique concrète? I mean, there might be one too many airplane sounds on it for my taste. But it's fine. I love it. I also love Dear Prudence. I think it's written structurally. You've got this folky Donovan guitar style, which is new. First mention for Donovan there. and I think, and the structurally written aspect, I think, is important. I think it shows Lennon's genius, really. You remember he said famously, "I'm an artist. If you give me a tuba, I'll get you something out of it." Well, I think that this song is a tuba, basically. The elements here are a tuba. He takes a line and then sings it twice as fast. He's just very good at making something out of almost nothing, really. I've taken out Glass Onion, right? Don't hate it, but I think it's poorly positioned. I'll come back to that. So I'm going straight in here with Obla Di Obla Da, which nice contrast, I think, with Dear Prudence. Now, this is Paul's granny music, right, as John called it. But I think this is good granny music, right? And I particularly appreciate the tribute to, Britain's cultural association with the Caribbean, my wife being West Indian. But I think this is not Paul's greatest song, but I think it's a nice construction, good theme, imaginative melody, great arrangement. Now, Wild Honey Pie, I like. I don't know why all the hate, right? That's staying in, right? That's staying in for me. I think it's just one of those surrealist pieces that I think were originally supposed to define the album. It's a linking passage, essentially. But again, it makes me think of, it's kind of weird sounding, surreal. And I think that's in line with the original idea of A Doll's House, because it's kind of uncanny sounding. It's also uncanny because it shares a title with Honey Pie, Wild Honey Pie, which is kind of like weird internal variation, and that's kind of like that can have an uncanny effect, something that you know and you don't know at the same time. Again, I mentioned earlier the split subject in psychoanalysis, and uncanniness has to do with that, because uncanniness is like an experience of something weird which you sort of don't know consciously, but you know it secretly unconsciously, and that produces sort of anxiety. So it's that split again, and also again between childhood and adulthood, right? So that short circuit between childhood and adulthood, A Doll's House, creates the uncanniness, and also surrealism, of course, because surrealism was influenced by Freud, right? And childhood is basically a Freudian theme on this album, I think. It's not the last time this comes up. Cry Baby Cry is another example. I think also Revolution 9, but I'll come back to that. Continuing Story of Bungalow Bill, I don't like too much, but I think it's not out of place. So I've kept it in. I think it's like a Dadaist comedy, again, Dada, early surrealism. Reminds me a bit of the Bonzo Dog Band, who they were friends with. And the Goons, of course, were a big influence on the Beatles. I think humour, especially absurdist humour, is important in British rock music, right? And I think this reflects it quite nicely. So I don't think it's a great song, but I think it's an interesting curio. And a little bit, I was thinking about your episode on the string band, the Incredible String Band, because I think that everyone says that Happiness is a Warm Gun is a reference to the string band. But I wonder whether this one as well, because it's got a time change in it and it's a bit of a bricolage. It made me think a little bit of the string band, Bungalow Bill. Then that contrasts with the very heavy While My Guitar Gently Weeps, which I'm keeping, right?
Yeah.
I think it's a great song. One of George's best, iconic tune. Bit negative, almost misanthropic. I mean, George
Acidic.
George was like that, right? Dylan did that too, of course. I mean, they were obvious friends, I think there's something of the beautiful soul, as Hegel would call it, in George and Dylan. The beautiful soul is somebody who feels can't understand why everything's going wrong in the universe, because they can't work out how they're indirectly implicated in it, basically. So they think, I'm such a good person, but they're not seeing the contradiction in their own position. We should mention Clapton, I suppose, who does the guitar solo. They discussed him as an obvious replacement for George on the Get Back film, right? Oh, we'll just
Yeah.
get Eric in, right?
Yeah.
I think Clapton's similar to George. He's about as good a songwriter as George Harrison, slightly better guitarist.
Tell you what, though, that
Yeah.
they definitely directed that guitar solo, because that doesn't. You would never think that was Clapton.
You don't think
basically.
he just plugged in and played the way that he always
but
does?
I think but I think they just told him what sort of feel they wanted, because it's that cry feel, and
Right.
but no way does it sound like Clapton at the time. It's there's nothing that links him to it really.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, not really.
Well, anyway, love that one. Happiness is a warm gun. I'm keeping as well a good ending to the side. I think it could have also have worked as an opener to side two, but I mean, there's a lot to fit on here, isn't there? So we'll slip that one in at the end. I think it's a brilliant little suite, or maybe a medley, albeit slightly beyond Ringo's abilities. I have to say, he goes out of time at one point, but I think it shows sort of Lennon's, kind of his effortless artistic imagination. But anyway, in sum, I'm going with the Ian MacDonald approach here, which is that like this album starts pretty well programmed, and I haven't done too much. I've just taken Glass Onion out, and I'll come back to that later on. So what have you got on your side one then?
Well, the thing is, there's a lot going on here, because I've shifted things, which I'll tell you which bits have vanished from their current position.
Okay.
They've either gone, that is, they've been resigned from the album, they're not on it, or they've been moved somewhere else.
Okay.
So my track listing for side one, there are 7 tracks. I've got Back in the USSR, followed by Glass Onion, then I'm So Tired, All Things Must Pass, Dear Prudence, and then we end with I Will and Julia, which is the original ending of side 2.
Fascinating. Okay.
I know.
Some rationale.
Some rationale. So, I mean, Back in the USSR, there is literally nothing else on this album, I think, that could start it. And I think it's to do with the theme. This idea of, like returning, sort of, here we are, we're back. I think actually that is what makes this really work, as well as the fact that it's an upbeat song. Because the other upbeat songs, I don't think you could start with Birthday, or Everybody's Got Something to Hide. I mean, it's just an odd way to start an album, but this one thematically starts really well. But it's a corker of a song. I mean, it's just a great way to start, isn't it? Yeah, there's a few too many airplanes. I agree with you, sort of coming in sort of almost randomly, isn't there? Like, why is that? Why did you? Why is there another aeroplane? They seem to be flying everywhere,
You had an aeroplane button in the studio. They just hit the airplane button. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a bit much of that. It's real energy though to that song. I just don't think you could start any better than that, really. So moving on to track 2, which is Glass Onion. I just think this dismisses Prudence, obviously, which has moved to somewhere else on my album. It's a perfect partner, I think, because you've got this cracking opener, which is classic kind of rock and roll sort of feel, gone into something which is a bit more sort of its time. I think you've got the odd references to their past. And also you're moving from a Lennon-McCartney thing, which is sort of a bit of a theme on the album I've made as well. What you need on an album, I think, is a good second rocky track. I think that if you dip down into something quiet, like on we were speaking about Dreams, on Rumours, it's an odd dip, I think, in a way. What you want is a couple of rockers to start with, so I think that's nice. Track 3 then goes into I'm So Tired, which I think is like the perfect drop down at that point. Although thematically you might think, well, it's like giving up before we've started, kind of thing. But I do think it drops down really nicely. I was tempted to start looking at keys and things, like I really would have liked to have known what the keys were, because some things naturally might sit next to each other because of their keys.
But although
I think,
sorry to interrupt, that's no guarantee, is it, the key? Because sometimes
no.
Things just work even though they're in a completely unrelated key.
True, that's true. And also, sometimes those things can sort of slip together nicely in certain keys. However, with George Harrison songs, it's like sometimes you don't even know what key. It's like, where does this song begin and end? So I think I'm So Tired is also that reality check thing, which is, it's kind of a zany start, really. It's a bit hysterical, isn't it? And then there's this kind of cool reality check. So for track 4, I've got All Things Must Pass. Obla D has actually gone. It's no longer on the album. I've removed it from the album. I have to say, rationale-wise, I just think it's a bit daft the song. I can see why people like it, but I really don't think it's a necessary thing on this album. I've never looked forward to hearing it. I've always wanted to skip it. It's a bit sickly. I don't really like it at all. So I think it's my opportunity to get rid of it. This though is a heavyweight song. All Things Must Pass. It's an epic, and I think what's weird about when I was arranging this is that the George Harrison stuff actually is quite, because it's so serious generally, it's like a dead weight in the middle of each side, but it seems to work really well. It's like an anchoring sort of tool, and this just sounds amazing, I think. It sort of puts the other tracks, into sort of position, I think, strangely. Dismissed, but really, it should be on here. It's like a real heavyweight, I think. And you need something epic, I think, at that point on the album. Something big that's sort of been building up. You're coming up to. Then I go into track 5, which is Dear Prudence. I think that comes off really nicely off the back of a longer track like that. Wild Honey Pie, which would normally be there, has been moved away, as you say. I really like that as well. Dear Prudence is almost like a gentle recovery. I think it feels like it could almost come out of anything, but out of something loud and busy, I think it works really well, Dear Prudence. This sort of rises up, doesn't it? What I really like is there's a really nice group feel as well. Some of these tracks don't feel like they're group efforts, whereas some of these are just so well arranged, I think. And it's such a shame we never heard All Things Must Pass by the Beatles, because it's very hard to imagine, actually, what that would have sounded like, Because all I've got is, what he produced after the Beatles, but that will have to do.
They were doing it as a sort of band-style number even back then. I think they tried it in the sessions for this, if I'm not mistaken. And they tried to arrange it a bit like, music from the Big Pink sound. It sounded good, really good.
So the sort of end of this album is this classic the acoustic guitar playoff between I Will, track 6, and track 7, Julia, because that's such a great way of seeing, isn't it, the two minds, basically in the same context. What would Paul McCartney do? He'd write something like I Will. Continuing Story of Bungalow Bill has actually gone off the album.
Okay, fair enough.
And then we have Julia at the end, which I've moved While My Guitar Gently Weeps. That's moved forward in the album now, but I think it's a perfect side ending. Julia, it's very sobering, isn't it? That, and I think those two songs are so well paired together. They always were, and it's this kind of foreshadowing of what's going to happen, isn't it? Which is, basically this should have been on the Plastic Ono Band album, really, shouldn't it? It's got that feel to it. It sort of foreshadows what's about to happen with John Lennon. So yes, Happiness of a Warm Gun would be the last track on the side one, but I've moved that as well. Okay,
fair enough.
So that's my side one.
Brilliant. I'm doing some furious note taking here.
I bet.
I can see you've obviously done more work here than I have. You've done more homework, but anyway,
it's like I got a digger out and started just like moving everything. Terrible.
You don't think, what? I have lots of questions, but I mean, you wouldn't have While My Guitar Gently Weeps instead of All Things Must Pass. You don't think that's equivalently epic?
Possibly, yeah. They're both on my version, but yeah, if forced to replace, possibly, yeah.
Right. Okay. Good. I mean, the excision of Obla Di Obla Da is scandalous, I think.
Right.
But it depends. Again, we could chat about this forever, couldn't we? But it depends if you want an album that you want to listen to, or whether you want an album that is like a Beatles album. And if it's a Beatles album, it's got to have some granny music on it, isn't it? Basically.
Yeah. The thing is that it's like the analogy of, I always think of it as like a chocolate box. Every single chocolate in this box is like a different flavour, and it's not like no one eats all of them. Someone has to eat the coffee cream. And it's like that's sort of left, isn't it? But that's what it feels like. Nothing seems to gel. Everything is in its own little world anyway, so you just pick and choose what you like, don't you? I mean, things don't necessarily have to work together.
Someone has to eat the Savoy truffle.
Yes, whatever the hell that is.
All right, brilliant. Okay, I am going to let's move on. My side 2. Number 1, Martha, My Dear. Number 2, Piggies. Number 3, Blackbird. Number 4, Your Blues. Number 5, Don't Pass Me By. don't. Yeah. We'll come back to it. Number 6, Why Don't We Do It in the Road? And number 7, Julia. Okay. Again, let me explain my thinking here. I'm going to need to. So again, rule of 7, right?
Right.
And I actually moved a couple of the tracks around from a potential side 3 to a side 2 in order to make this work, right? In line with the album side's length that I was testing myself with. I still think this is a sort of reasonable. Like 7 tracks is a reasonable length and dynamic for a Beatles album. There's originally 9 on this side, which I think was excessive. So I've taken out I'm So Tired and Rocky Raccoon. I like them both a lot, but I'm going to use them later, right? And Piggies and Blackbird I've reversed for programmatic reasons. And I've replaced I Will with Your Blues because I had to replace something with something. And this substitution works in terms of side length, basically. Yeah. I Will I have put in the bin, which is where I think it belongs. I would put I Will in the category of throwaway McCartney.
Right.
For me, it holds no melodic or harmonic interest whatsoever. Even though the weirdly pared down production I find slightly intriguing. But apart from that, I don't like that track at all. Now, going through my inclusions, Martha My Dear might be my personal favourite song on this album. To me, it sums up everything that's great about Macca's songwriting. Great tune, interesting harmonic developments, so economical, you know. Also, by the way, brilliantly arranged. I don't know by whom.
The arrangement's one of the best on the album, isn't it?
It's
really
amazing.
Cleverly done. Yeah.
I mean, you've got to. It's the magic hands of George Martin, isn't it? You know,
it's such a feat of imagination. That song, the way it swings from section to section is amazing.
Yeah. Even though, again, I think Ringo goes out of time on the drums. I mean, the beat turns around at one point. He doesn't notice. It's a twee lyric, but, you know, who cares? It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Piggies, which I've got next, it's not my favourite. You know, more sort of George Harrison misanthropy. He's such a misery guts, isn't he? I also don't think it's a great tune, but... Yeah. It's got something about it, I think. I love, again, this is what I was saying, like, it's not for me, but I can see why this works within the format of this album. I really like also the Baroque arrangement, you know, string arrangement and everything. I find it very interesting, presumably, again, by George Martin. And I think, actually, the terseness of the theme, plus the arrangement, makes it a slightly iconic track, this one. You know, it's a sort of more notable... Perhaps even a more famous Beatles track. So I think it's got to go on there. Also, quite a humorous lyric, if you can get over all the negativity, you know.
Yeah.
Blackbird is a thing of genius, I think, you know. Crosby, Stills and Nash's version is also amazing, you know, but this is the original and best.
The harmonies are great, aren't they?
Oh, yeah, one beautiful.
Yeah.
But like you've got 2 beautiful versions of it, but totally different versions of the same songs. But yeah, I've got it's got a special place in my heart, this one. It's a great guitar part. He was so good at the guitar, Paul McCartney. And a brilliant tune, which alternates between... here I go again. Major key and the blues scale. So it's like a perfect synthesis of the sort of Anglican tradition and American rock and roll, right?
Yeah.
And that's not the only example of that on this album. I'll perhaps come back to that later. Your Blues, I don't love, but I think it's so iconic. You know, I think it's a lyric song. You know, it's a cri de coeur, isn't it? Like as you were saying, Plastic Ono Band. You know, I mean, it could be sort of Plastic Ono Band's track, this. And again, in the sense of being a lyric song and in like a sort of expressionist song, I think it's a bit reminiscent of some Dylan, again, you know, in that respect. And he even mentions Dylan, of course, in the track.
Yes.
And also, in the same sense, I think it's slightly situationist, you know. Here I am, you know, this is how I'm feeling, you know, get it while it's hot, etc. Which is even actually augmented by the fact that there's a verse missing because the mic was broken.
Yeah, it's great, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
I love that.
So it's really situationist. They go, we're going to keep that in. That's a screw up. We're going to keep that in. So yeah, not the greatest musical moment on the album, I think, but without without this sort of experimentation, it wouldn't be and this kind of like artistic diversity, it wouldn't be a Beatles album. Along the same lines, I've included the last 3 tracks, right? Don't Pass Me By, Why Don't We Do It in the Road, and Julia, because none of these are my favourites actually, but I think they're all sort of, again, essential to the experience of the album, and they represent 3 different members of the group, right?
Yeah.
And I think we can have Ringo's song, even though it's poor, it's got some of that. I can't remember who said this. Might have been Ian McDonald. Some of his forlorn good cheer. That he's famous for. And I don't think it holds up Proceedings too much. Again, everything on here is very short, really. Without Ringo, the Beatles wouldn't be the Beatles, would they? But let's be honest. So let's let him have a song.
No.
Let's let him have a song, shall we?
Yeah.
Let's let him have his moment. Why don't we do it in the road? I really like, again, why all the hate? I think it's funny. I think it's crucially very short. I think of it as a linking track, actually. And again, very situationist. I mean, it sums up the sort of situationist motif. Let's do it right here, right now. And it's a reference to street theatre, I think. So they say. So you got sort of form and content sort of doubled here at this point on the album, and then finally Julia, which again is not my favourite track musically. I think it's slightly dull. And in that sense, I have to say, probably it also would fit on a Plastic Ono Band album, which I'm not that much of a fan of. But another thing I find difficult about this track is his out of tune singing bothers me a little. But again, I think it's a necessary track, this one, so to speak.
It's interesting. You've split I Will and Julia then, because they were together originally, but you've.
Yeah, I mean, I've relegated I Will to the dustbin of history.
Oh, right. I thought you were going to say the dustbin of side 4.
Yes, again, according to the Ian McDonald philosophy. But yeah, I am. Again, as I say, I think it's a necessary track, this one, because I think it's an important part of the Beatles mythology. Moving from Julia to Yoko. Because he says ocean child, which is what her name means apparently in Japanese. He used to call Yoko mummy, apparently, which again is rather uncanny because it's rather incestuous. Again, the Freudian primal scene, etc. So yeah, my side 2 my side 2 I think is less sort of musically interesting than my side 1, but I think the sort of the integrity and the spirit of the album is at least maintained somehow. That was my feeling about it. So yeah. Would you like to go to your side 2? I'm ready with my pen.
Yes. So obviously we're gonna end up with some tracks I'm going to mention I've moved that I've already moved to side 1. There's a hell of a lot going on here. There's a lot of different angles, but basically I'd start side 2 with Revolution. Now you're going to have to allow me a little bit of sort of leeway here, because what I mean by that is I don't mean Revolution 1 from the album. What I'd like is the single as the start, but I want the harmony parts from the album in Revolution, the heavy version, because the trouble is when you listen to the single, it's really sparse. All the lovely harmonies and things you get on the album version, is it side 3, I think, they're all missing, aren't they? In the single version, but I think if you combine those together, this is a great opening track basically for the album. So I don't know if I'm allowed that or not. No. Martha My Dear has been moved out of that point. It's been moved. I do love the track, but it's kind of been moved to another position in the album. Followed up, second one is Wild Honey Pie. Now this is kind of a bit like again, a bit like the start of side 1, where you've got a kind of zanier second track, I think. Something to sort of liven the senses up a bit. And this is a real... they couldn't wobble this more than they do. God knows what they did with the tape, but it's so, intense, isn't it? It's almost at breaking point, this. But it's this crazy thing which is perfect for the time. It represents something as a passing thing, you know. On the album it's fine, it doesn't last too long. I'm So Tired I've Moved, obviously, to side one.
That's the spirit, isn't it? It's like, let's include Don't Pass Me By. It doesn't last too long, it's fine. Go on, carry on.
Yeah, yes, neither of us like the whole album, we're just like getting through it, surviving. So my track 3 is actually Teddy Boy.
That should be our alternative title for this episode, Surviving the White Album.
Surviving the White Album, in brackets. So my track 3 is actually Teddy Boy. Okay, now this is coming obviously off a completely different album. I've moved Blackbird out. I think in a way they're quite a nice little swap round, really. It's a nice drop down. I think it's the same thing as side 1, which is you need a couple of rockier tracks to start with in order to drop down into something a little bit lighter. And I've always really liked this song. You know, I do think it sustains. I like all the bass parts. I think that they're really nicely poised in this song as well. It just rolls really nicely. Then track 4 again is a Harrison song, so it's While My Guitar Gently Weeps, which again is a heavy sort of epic, which you need, I think, is it 4th on the side. It's the same sort of thing as All Things Must Pass. It holds that same weight. It's like a grand statement. I also think it's really well produced by the band, because what you got to remember, you know, is all these are demos, aren't they? Originally, they're all guitar songs, but look what they do with it. You know, look how they end up these songs once they've gone through the mill of consideration, you know, and instrumentation and everything. I mean, you know, it's a great song basically, and it's really well built up by the band. It's good band effort. Plus, of course, you've got Eric Clapton in there. Then on to another rocky one, which is your Blues. I think this is like, it's a 12 bar, which isn't really done apart from Why Don't We Do It in the Road. This is the 12 bar, isn't it? I think it's just such a great performance by John Lennon. It goes to show, doesn't it, why he is this genius, because he turns anything into gold. I think this is such a simple idea, isn't it? But he just knows how to place everything, you know. You know, when something is almost broken, then you move on to something else. You know, he just knows how it all works, and it's very, you know, intuitive, this song, isn't it? But it's a brilliant performance. I love the mic drop at the end. Sorry, and when I was younger and I first heard it, I thought, oh, that's a shame. You know, they didn't realise or something that, you know, that like I was that, you know, like they were that stupid or something. But of course the decision was made because something went wrong. It's a great ending. I love the ending to that. I think it's really great. It's almost like our turn, isn't it? It's like we're suddenly included in the song because no one else is singing. Got a problem with that?
Well, again, in that sense, like it kind of prefigures Revolution 9 a little bit, because it's like this is a studio accidental, aleatory experience, you know. Sorry,
so the last track, because there's only 6, there were 9 originally on this side, but I've only got 6, and that's from again another outtake, What's the New Mary Jane. Now this ends side 2 really nicely. I think it's the Revolution number 9 is the elephant in this album, isn't it? It's what are you going to do with that? And I think this is a perfect replacement for that. Essentially, it's about 5-6 minutes long, so it's a little bit, you know, tightened up. Don't Pass Me By is gone. I've placed this in. I think this is one of those examples of a successful sort of avant-garde idea matched up with a really neat little song to go with it, which lyrically is just brilliant. I mean, there's so many great little moments in the lyrics on that, and I love the idea of Paul McCartney like really going along with this as well. You know, like he appreciated what it was. You can't imagine Paul McCartney writing something like this or wanting to be involved, but he is, and they both, you know, really enjoy it and they really want it. It's a nice kind of bonding thing, I think. It's long enough to make the point without being Revolution number 9, where you don't really know whether you want to listen to it or not. It's musical, you know, and Revolution 9 isn't musical. And I think these two things are, in a sense, doing the same sort of thing roughly, you know, sort of manipulating sound, you know, for effect to see what happens. But this is a successful version of it, I think, you know, and I think this would have made a better thing. Rather than having a massive block of sound which you kind of have to think, do I want to listen to it or not? This is worth listening to. It does sustain well. What that does mean is I've moved 3 things. Why Don't We Do It in the Road has gone completely off the album. And I Will and Julia obviously have been moved to my side one together.
Okay.
My God, this is very different, isn't it?
I love the expression, let's talk about the elephant in the album. I mean, the elephant in the album is Revolution 9, isn't it?
Always has been.
And this was always going to be, and it was going to be a big decision for both of us, I think. You know, and of course, there's a lot riding on it. I mean, just a spoiler alert, I've kept it, and for that reason, I didn't include What's the New Mary Jane, but I love What's the New Mary Jane, and I would have had that to replace Revolution. But I think, personally, it's important to keep Revolution, but I'll explain why, you know, at the appropriate time. Ringo's not going to be happy. When he inevitably listens to this episode.
True. You mean Don't Pass Me By? He, by his own admission, surely it was the worst thing he ever recorded, like with the Beatles. I don't mind his songs. I just think this is so bad.
Yeah. We did our least favourite Beatles songs episode, didn't we? And it got roasted, that one. But anyway, but I'm keeping it.
I'm keeping it.
So look, brilliant. Let's do. Interesting. You've got Harrison doing all the heavy epics there.
Well, I didn't expect this, but it seems to be that's how it works on this album. You know, it continues as well. It does continue that feel.
Yeah.
Don't know.
Also, I can just say I think it's great that you've already got into remixing the album.
Yes.
You're editing stuff down, you know, dropping in harmonies from other pieces.
Well, when I thought Revolution 1 was a little bit heavier, so I thought, oh no, hang on a minute, we want something a bit heavier. I went to the single and thought, I prefer the album version actually, but I want it heavier. So if we don't mind blending these two, then I'll be happy.
Very interesting. Well, we'll come back to that as well. I mean, remember, they only had a day to program this whole thing. There wasn't time to remix anything by the end. But anyway, it's fine. But this, as we said, this is a thought experiment, isn't it? All right, good. Side 3. I've got number 1, Birthday. Number 2, I'm So Tired. Number 3, Mother Nature's Son. Number 4, Everybody's Got Something to Hide Except for Me and My Monkey. Number 5, Sexy Sadie. Number 6, Rocky Raccoon. Number 7, Helter Skelter, and that's the end.
Ooh.
Right, so again, rule of 7, and you will note that or the audience will note that I've stuck to some of the original programming here, because again, I think it works. I've dropped in I'm So Tired here and Rocky Raccoon, because Your Blues was moved up, right? And I've completely dropped Long, 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 because I hate it, right? I think it's his worst one on the album. The only thing is, there is, again, a nice weirdness to it, I have to say, especially the ending. But, I mean, that's fine. I can live without that, you know. So that's gone, as I said, in the dustbin of history. Now, let me just go through them quickly. Birthday, I love it. It's co-write, unusually.
Oh, yeah.
My dad, this is a personal anecdote. My dad used to describe, because he introduced me to the White Album because he had a copy, you know, ferreted away at home. He used to describe this side 3 as the heavy metal side.
Oh yeah.
And this is where it begins, of course. The arrangement is so raw, you know, and Macca is screaming his head off. I think sometimes he sounded like Lemmy, you know. But what I like about this is it's a structural piece, you know, a bit like a prog piece. You know, we talk about prog a lot on our channel, you know, on our podcast. In a sense, like, what I mean by this is it's a structural piece in the sense that it's sectional, right? Not sexual, sectional, which is exciting, you know. I'm So Tired is iconic again, I think, you know, so short, simple, but effective, interesting chords, sort of doo-wop variation, including like a semitone jump, which is interesting, and then a sort of rapped chorus. I mean, he's basically rapping on the chorus, you know, but it's played very, the rhythm kind of over-determines the tune. But that's great, very interesting. Ringo sounds great on this one, by the way. I made a note on the chorus, and it's all wrapped up within 2 minutes, you know. Mother Nature's Son is one of my absolute faves on the album. Another effortlessly brilliant McCartney ballad. Also, for some reason, I don't know if it's this dialectic, which I already discussed on Blackbird, between hymn-like English folk and blues chords, but I find that there's something very weird about this song.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have a view on this. Again, I talked about uncanniness. It's not like a country ideal. It's a little bit effed up, right?
Yes.
I can't quite explain why.
Yeah, well, it's got it's got those flattest sevenths in, isn't it?
Well,
I mean, it ends oddly as well.
It does. It ends on the flattened seventh, doesn't it?
Yeah,
yeah,
it is. It's slightly disturbing, isn't it? And I mean, it's that D F, the sort of minor third thing. It's not. Yeah, it's a slightly unhinged, isn't it? Yeah,
it's a song about a young lad in the countryside, and you think, oh, that's a sweet thing, but it's very weird. The harmonies are weird, and the theme is even a bit like, who is this lad? Anyway,
it's like he's taken a walk in the country, but he gets mown down by a milk van. Which...
Well, my thoughts exactly. Everybody's Got Something to Hide, except for Me and My Monkeys, one of my favourite Lennon songs on the album. He seemed to be slowing down a little bit by this point as a songwriter. But I think one of the nice things about the White Album generally is that he's been relatively prolific here, hasn't he? I guess because he was bored in India, Another heavy metal piece, to quote my old man. But it's John that's screaming this time, of course. Again, it's through composed, this one. So that's kind of unusual. It reminds me a little bit of Queen Bitch on Hunky Dory by David Bowie. I was talking about in my Hunky Dory episode about how that was through composed. Like each section kind of like emerges from the last one. It's based on a sort of discrete sequence. Basically John was composing in short blocks at this point, I think. If you listen to the Escher demos, he's like trying lots of different things. Again, could be the string band influence. And that can lead to some sort of modular effects. Happiness is a Warm Gun, being the paradigmatic example. Anyway, love that one. Sexy Sadie's not my favourite. It's similar chords to I'm So Tired on the verse. So, I mean, it feels like it's slightly perhaps been done before by this point. But I think it's all right, that bit. But, I think it's not that interesting. But it does require a nice contrasting section. And it does have one, I think. The ascending chords... on the bridge with the first inversion. It's a sunny day, the world was waiting for a lover. That one. The way the chords, the bass ascends is really nice, I think. I think it's beautiful, that bit. The track reminds me of Cry Baby Cry, maybe because of the feel, but I think this one's much better. And one slight problem I have with it is the ending. I think the George Harrison guitar part at the end is a bit sort of prosaic. Sounds like Beatles doing the Beatles, or even I was thinking Beatles doing Oasis or vice versa,
Oh my God.
It's kind of like, I've heard this before. Oasis have done this one. Now I've slipped in Rocky Raccoon as the penultimate number for contrast and because I like it a lot. I think it's really charming. Again, no great mystery, good tune, as usual, brilliant arrangement. And an exercise, I think, in McCartney's sort of nascent gift for counterpoint. Think Silly Love Songs by Wings. So he's writing various melodies over the same chord sequence, right? I think that shows his musical heritage, which he got from his dad, actually, who was also a musician. So he's sort of trying different melodies over the same chord sequence, in other words, and fun little story as well. Slightly makes me think of what's the Dylan one? Lily, Rosemary, and the Jack of Hearts later on. Then I end with Helter Skelter, which I think is amazing. Be a great end to the side. I think first, perhaps heavy metal song proper on the album, riffy, lots of screaming, and again genuinely uncanny. Partly because of the arrangement and the weird sort of aleatory touches in the production. Again, aleatory. And it sort of actually made me think that, I wonder whether in the end actually Charles Manson was right. Like, in the sense that they really were trying to send him a message, So, that's my side three. Where are you going on this one?
So, God, this is so different, isn't it? I mean... Structurally, I've just torn everything to pieces, but there are certain things which I just think cannot be moved. And I'll give you my track listing. So side 3, I've got Birthday as the opener, followed by Blackbird, and then I've got Sour Milk Sea, the Harrison number, and then Martha My Dear. Track 5 is Child of Nature by Lennon. Track 6 is Mother Nature's Son. This is a 9-tracker, this one. And track 7 is Piggies. And then we end with Happiness is a Warm Gun and Junk.
Interesting.
So the 9 tracks that were originally on side 2, I've
Blimey.
put 9 together.
Yeah.
And I think it still runs to the 23 minutes.
Right.
Hopefully it doesn't overrun that. I don't think it does. So basically Birthday has stayed exactly where it is. Birthday and Back in the USSR are kind of anchor points in this album, I think, because what you've effectively done on side 3 is you've actually got a different record. You know, this is the new record and the second record, and I think you need something like Birthday on it. Great riff. You know, it's a really good riff on there, isn't it? It holds everything together, and it's nice, you know, it's not that strummy feel, but I think you're right, all the blocks really work really well. It's a great opener. You know, I mean, it's a love song, really, isn't it? It's most of these are, aren't they? They're just all in different clothes, you know. I think then you drop down to Blackbird, which is perfect. Blackbird pretty much goes anywhere, doesn't it? It's such a good song, really. It's weird, isn't it? It doesn't matter how many times you hear it. You know, there's not many songs like that, is there, that you are absolutely delighted to hear every time you hear it. You never get tired of this song for some reason. Year Blues has been moved from that point where it normally would be, which is interesting because one of the things I was going to say earlier, which I forgot to mention, of course, is that we're so used to these transitions, aren't we? And the transition you've got from I'm So Tired into Blackbird, for example, you're so used to hearing, when you hit, I don't know if you get this, you hear the end of one of these songs, and it's like somehow they are tied together, aren't they, with the next song? There is no breaking these songs up. It's because you know the order, and some of them work so beautifully. It's like Cry Baby Cry going into Revolution 9, sorry. That ending is perfect changeover, isn't it? And that's how you know it. So these have just been blocked together, and so it's a bit, when you actually hear it, it's a bit weird to suddenly be cut off at the end of a song and you don't get what you expect next. You know, it would take some time, I think, to get used to my version of this album. Hopefully,
well, that's the beauty of Spotify playlists.
It is. You can do whatever you want with them. So I think there's a drop down as well. I was talking about keys earlier from sort of Birthday. I think it's in A and it drops down to G, which I thought was quite nice. With Blackbird, it's a lovely tune. And then here we go with the Harrison anchor point. It's Sour Milk Sea. I absolutely love this song. I always have. I'm just surprised. It's really like well put together, this song. And Harrison does something that none of the others seem to be able to do, which is he can really play with the chords, you know, and come up with some really odd ideas, but it doesn't work very often, I think. Sometimes they're just too angular, they're too out of the ordinary, and they don't flow. But the melody rides across these chords really nicely, and I think it's a perfect example of the kind of style, you know, that he does well when he manages it. You know, this is a different kind of songwriting, really. So Mother Nature's Son has been moved off from there. I think I was really surprised this just isn't on the album. You know, I've never considered it like that. It really should be on this album. Number 4, we go to Martha My Dear, which Everybody's Got Something to Hide has been moved. I think it's brilliantly produced. I love Martha My Dear. It almost sounds like it's sort of better produced than everything else. You know, it doesn't have any kind of raggedy quality to it. It's a perfectly well done. I mean, the stuff that sounds nice, I suppose, is the simplest songs, you know, where you haven't got many elements to be dealing with. This has got lots on it, you know, but it's just brilliantly done. It's like they really took the time, you know, to get this right, I think. So Child of Nature was my next one, which became Jealous Guy originally, but the Child of Nature was the original idea. I love this. You know, again, it's such an epic song. I'm not sure what it would have sounded like ultimately if did the Beatles do a recording of this and just abandon it? God knows why. Was it lyrically they didn't like it, or
they tried it out? I mean, there was a recording of them doing it, I think, at this time, but they just obviously, I mean, perhaps John Lennon wasn't interested in it. I don't know, because the lyric is a bit. Do you think the lyric matters? of Jealous Guy, because he obviously thought it did.
I'm forever being reminded, that the lyrics are. I've come to this conclusion, which is I've spent my entire life brushing off lyrics, basically, and think that, people will listen to anything. If they like the tune, it doesn't matter what the lyrics are, because some of the songs on here prove that, don't they? They're just ridiculous lyrics, but they work because the tune's so good. I think actually people really care, what the words are, and I wonder whether maybe this just doesn't hit home as well, and so they just didn't, but it's an amazing song. Jealous Guy's a brilliant song, I think. So I think if some version of that would have been brilliant on here as well. Again, it's just like an epic song. It's serious, got such a deep message behind it. Obviously I'm talking about a slightly later version, but I do like the song in whatever state it is in. Track 6 then would be Mother Nature's Son. Yeah, you're right. It's a sort of bittersweet song, this, isn't it? There's something charming and slightly unnerving about it at the same time. Like a clown directly approaching you. You're not sure which way to run
in the street.
Yes, and is only focused on you. Helter Skelter, I'm sorry to say, is actually gone
from the album.
It's gone. It's off the album.
Bloody
Sorry,
hell.
It's gone. So Mother Nature's Song, I think, is it feels a bit like an intermission, because it is short, this song, it is, and it doesn't there's no extra bits added in, it doesn't build up in any way, does it, like that? There's a horn part and things, but I think it's a sort of thoughtful moment more than anything, but I do like the song. And then track 7, we've got Piggies. You know what? Piggies I think it's my favourite middle eight, like, of any song on this album. I love the middle eight to this song. It's so simple, but it's so effective, and I love those. Is it those like cellos or something play this sort of bluesy riff in it? That's so good. It's so well done.
And of course,
what it is
culminates in the line, "What they need's a damn good working," which is
that part is just wonderful. I think it's worth keeping the song just for that alone.
Was written by his mum, apparently. That line. No, seriously, seriously,
brilliant. Yeah. Well, I mean, That doesn't replace any tracks. I believe that's in the same position. Or, in fact, actually, no, it's not, is it? There isn't any tracks at this point. I've gone beyond the remit. So, track 8 then is "Happiness Is a Warm Gun." This song is such a great example of how you can stick to the Lennon formula, which is the sort of the line of the line of the melody is very simple. It's not asking much of the singer, really, because it doesn't jump around a lot. But he backs it so well. The context of this is so great. It's such a... You end up thinking, oh, that's a great melody. It's not really a great melody, but the accompaniment so good. It really lifts the whole thing. And it's so serious. And I love the lines, a soap impression of his wife, which he ate and donated to the National Trust. How could you not like that? It's incredible. It's just... And then, of course, it moves into these other parts, And the part with... where it goes into the sort of heavy guitar part with the drums. I don't even know how anyone conceives of that kind of section, because everyone's all over the place, but somehow it's like the blocks work, don't they, together? And yet it's really doesn't seem to make much sense, but somehow it does. I don't know. It
didn't make much sense to Ringo.
Well, I wonder. That's what I wonder. Sometimes you think, right, if I'm making sense of a mistake here, I'm trying to make good out of something that's actually wrong. I don't know, but anyway, there it is. So I end on Junk, because I think I do really like Junk, the song, and I think it is twee, and people kind of say it's one of these sort of silly songs, but it's hard to write a decent little tune like that, I think, actually. It swings key as well, it sort of floats around quite a lot. I think it'd be a lovely side ender to this as well, because it's like a sort of moment of thought, isn't it? I really like the imagery as well in it, this kind of idea of junk wanting to remain as junk, but it's got to be sold. It's nice, it's twee, but I just think it's the kind of thing he writes well, and people don't write like him at the time anyway. That's it.
Great. There's a lot going on in that side, isn't there? There's a lot of tracks, and they're very good. The phrase Harrison anchor points, I like.
Yeah.
There's an episode waiting to be done. He's very lateral thinker, isn't he, George Harrison, in terms of like harmonies.
Right. Yeah.
That Sour Milk Sea is a real paradigm of that. I think that's what attracted Dylan about him. You know, as a
Right.
songwriter, he said you just don't know where he's going to end when the line begins. You don't know where it's going to end. You know,
No.
harmonically, which is
No.
true. Very interesting. I'm still reeling from the fact that you've excluded Helter Skelter from the
I didn't
album.
explain it, and I didn't explain it. I just threw it away.
No?
Nothing.
Yeah.
I think what it is that it's like McCartney doing feel pieces. I think is what it is. It's like
Right.
imagine Lennon in the hands of Lennon. Maybe it might have had something because that's the kind of thing he would have done. I often feel it's like McCartney trying to do a Lennon in the sense that maybe he's trying to build a bridge or something. Do you know what I mean? Because there is that kind of moment here, isn't there? This sort of '68 thing where they realise something like, "Oh my God, are we actually like breaking up here?" And it takes a few years to happen.
Yeah.
But maybe it's like a kind of reaching out. You know, what is this thing that he does? You know, is it something I do? So
Right.
I was never convinced by it.
Fascinating.
You know what I'd really like to see is the Get Back film, you know, the 8 hour thing. Is there anything from this period then? Like is there footage or did no one film anything?
Don't know. Don't know.
Be
There's
fascinating to see
not,
that, wouldn't it?
certainly not any famous footage, is there?
No, shame.
Be a lot of audio recordings, I would think.
Yes.
All right, good. Let's get on with it. Let's put everyone out of their misery. Let's go to side 4. Okay, my side 4. Number 1, Glass Onion. Number 2, Savoy Truffle. Number 3, Not Guilty. Number 4, Revolution 9. And number 5, and this is the final track, Revolution, the single version. So we've got that in common. I don't care about dropping in the harmonies. But I've put Revolution, the single version, exercised my prerogative and included that one at the end after the experimental piece. Now, perhaps this is sort of, as I said, like before, this is perhaps my most altered side. You know, down to 5 tracks here for reasons of length. You know, particularly because of the length of Revolution 9. Now, started with Glass Onion. As I said earlier, I think this is sort of unnecessary on side 1, but I think it works as an opener here. You know, succinct, angular, weirdness. You know, for succinct weirdness, you know, you just can't get any better. Losing Honey Pie, because I think it's awful. It's bad granny music, I would say, that one. You know, it's McCartney at his sort of cloying, unfunny worst, you know. Then I've kept Savoy Truffle, right? More Harrison misanthropy, you know. But I think this is a brilliant musical construction, this one. As I said before, he always uses weird chord sequences, and they're not always successful.
Yeah.
But here, I think it really comes off. The chorus line, you'll have to have them all pulled out after the Savoy Truffle. I think is a brilliant ending, harmonic ending to the whole line. And the way it alternates between sort of augmented chords and full chords.
Yes.
On that bit in particular, plus the usual sort of suspension. I always like that interval. I think that's really great. Next, I insert an outtake, Not Guilty, right? I think this is another great George song with very interesting chords. A shame, you know, that they didn't include it. You might have noticed that I'm designating this last side, this sort of dark, complex side, as a John and George side. There's no Paul here at all.
Right.
Yeah, and I think it's a really interesting track, this one, Not Guilty. I think the vocal has too much echo. I think it's too weird sounding. They should have made his voice sound a bit more like the rest of the album, and then I think it would have worked fine. They did so many takes of this, over 100. They could have just redone the vocals or taken the echo off. I think it would have been a much better. I think this would make a much better Harrison contribution than, for example, Long, Long, Long. Right? Now, I've always thought of side 4 of this album as the side of Revolution. Right? Both because of its thematic importance at the time, you know, socio-culturally speaking, and also because, if memory serves, I think it was the first song they started for the album, right?
Right.
So it set the tone for the whole project, really. And, you know, therefore, you know, what better way to end, as it were, than with 2 different iterations of it. First, the sound collage, which I think is important, this track, because I think it marks the limit of Beatles experimentalism, basically, both musically and culturally, you know. And I think, again, Ian MacDonald says, isn't it amazing that a track this weird ended up in so many homes, you know? I also like, again, you know, the dream-like quality. Again, we're back to Freud, you know, the interpretation of dreams. I think that goes with the sort of the mooted theme, you know, revolution. And I think it reflects something important about the period, right? This was, after all, you know, let's not forget the age of revolution, right?
Yeah.
And revolution is always, to use my earlier term, uncanny. You know, it's the return of the repressed, to put it in psychoanalytic terms. So that all ties in nicely, I think. But I think this track needs a better coda, you know, than Good Night, which I've always thought was one of their absolute worst songs. So why not have Revolution, the single version, which I think would be a great album closer. It's sort of
with the cymbals at the end.
Yeah, it's a sort of a piece with the experimental section. And you'd have a very interesting and explosive ending to the album there.
Also gives that kind of sense, doesn't it? The Beatles, it's like, what's next then? Because it's a dramatic, big rock and roll ending, isn't it? It does give it that nice feel. Not that I've gone for it, but it does sound good, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether it's when they recorded that single version. I hope it wasn't too late in the sessions to, you know, to be included in their programming session that they did, George Martin, John and Paul.
It's interesting that you've picked up on the single, you know, for Revolution, because it seems to suit the album really well because of that sort of acid guitar sound which comes out in other songs, doesn't it? It seems to suit it perfectly.
Totally right, yeah. Totally
I feel like a blend of the two would be best, but I don't know. Yeah.
Let's get on with it. Peter, your 4, please.
My dark side. So side 4 is, it starts with Everybody's Got Something to Hide. Revolution 1 has moved off from there, obviously. And has been replaced with a single. I think Everybody's Got Something to Hide will be a perfect opener for side 4. I love that fire bell. I have never understood how anyone could keep rhythm with it. Were they playing it with sticks? Was it actually ringing in time? Like, it's really cleverly done, that. Also, when you start listening to these things, you go, oh, that's when the fire bell stops. I'd never really noticed it before until I started actually trying to work out what was happening with it, you know? I'll tell you what, George Martin, one thing he does do, I've noticed with a few of these tracks, he cuts off. He's very good at sort of cutting off, like a harmony will just end dead. Like it doesn't fade. Sometimes he just goes, right, that's the end of that bit, even though they're still singing. It's like, right, stop, we're on to the next bit now. Like they're literally cutting tape with scissors or something.
I think that's a very well observed point. There's a lot of that in the Beatles material, isn't there? Like from the very beginning, George Martin, you sort of imagine him going, right, that's enough of that track.
Yeah. It's like, what happened to blending things? What happened to fading, you know? Anyway, so the second one is Savoy Truffle, which I have kept. Is that right? Kept it in the right place? The horns, that's what really makes this song for me. I think the horns are such a good... They work so well with this track. They make it really... They give it this force, this power, I think, behind it. I mean, it's okay. It's not the song I like most of his, but, you know, the lyric's really good. It's bizarre, you know, lyric-wise. You know, I don't know what he's going on about, really, but I just think that the arrangement works really well.
Written for Eric Clapton, apparently. Eric Clapton, who loved chocolate.
Helter Skelter has gone from that point, as you know already. Number 3 then is Sexy Sadie. Savoy Truffle has been moved, obviously, back one. I think Sexy Sadie is a good partner sort of song to Everybody's Got Something to Hide, really, in a sense. It's kind of a sort of feel to it. And, of course, the Maharishi, link, which George Harrison said, you know, you can't sing Maharishi, you know, onto the song. You know, you need to change it to something else. I don't know who came up with the title for it, but it's okay. I never quite work out what key it's in, because it's sort of, I always imagine it's on the G and goes to the F sharp, B minor, something like that. But at the same time, it's like, is that right? The F sharp feels like it sort of anchors at the F sharp. It's not, is it? It's just this incidental.
Isn't it G, F sharp, B minor, C, D, or something like that?
Yeah.
Or
yeah, it's an unusual idea with that, but yeah, you're right about the sort of middle 8 bit, you know, where it sort of grows out suddenly. I imagine McCartney having some influence on that, really. It feels like it sort of grows in scale at that point. Number 4 then, I have got Honey Pie. Honey Pie sort of defines for me, in a way what this album is about, which is, of course you're going to have a song like this, some sort of throwback dance band song. It's like, why wouldn't you have that on here? Let's try throw everything at it. It's just a complete change in feel, isn't it? But it harps back to that kind of, the old days. I know that they're, born in the 40s, but kind of their parents, and I quite like that. But it does embrace the diversity of the album. I think it's one of those things Paul McCartney wrote, and he couldn't, do nothing with it. It was sitting there, and it was going to go on here. But I imagine John Lennon probably didn't. The other didn't want it. But the other thing is, it's not surprising at this point. This is one of the triumphs of this album. Is it's almost anything. You could have anything and it would work at this point because you've been through so much, It's like
an 8-minute sound collage, for example.
Yes, precisely. It's interesting you say about that, the Revolution 9 thing, because the next one, track 5, is Rocky Raccoon, and I've got Revolution 9. Now, when you say, which we all knew was coming, when you say it's amazing. Ian MacDonald says it's amazing. This got into everyone's home. Yeah, it did. But on a platter of other songs. It's not like people were buying it. I don't think as a single it would have sold. Would it really?
It was leavened by honey pie.
Yeah, I mean, as an idea on its own, I don't know. This is the sort of John and Yoko thing, isn't it? So just feeding its way in. But I think that in terms of simply, mostly in terms of just time management, I couldn't actually justify keeping this in anyway, because there's too many other things that I've tried to put in. So it couldn't take up that space, although it's not as long as people say. So Rocky Raccoon is a bit of a filler, I think, but it's sort of fun, isn't it? There's a finality to it as well, this song, which I think it kind of, it feels a bit like, it's like, in the lights go on at the end of the cinema. It feels a bit like that. I don't know why. It's like, oh yeah, it's time to go now. It's all over, which leads very nicely into my last song, which is Long, Long, Long. I know that that's not a favourite of yours, but I do think it's the best way to close the album, actually. It's sort of to dip down. There's something very spiritually weird about the sound of this, that sort of organ at the end as well. But it's a bit like the kind of... I imagine people would have sat around and listened to this album, from start to finish, like in an evening or something. And it's like, I think the good night thing, that's why it's there, isn't it? It's like the end of this, and I think that this is a nice way of ending the album, actually. But there's one little thing which I wanted to stick in just after Rocky Raccoon. It's the ending of Cry Baby Cry, which is Can You Take Me Back? The little McCartney idea, I think would be perfect to go into just Long, Long, Long. It is perfect for Revolution 9. I mean, those two just go together perfectly. But in the absence of Revolution 9, I think it would be nice just to have that as a sort of slow drifting off at the end of the album.
Did you ever think about putting Revolution 9 on?
No, it was one of the ones I immediately sort of got rid of, along with a few others, because I knew that I had other things I wanted to put in its place.
Even before Don't Pass Me By?
Don't Pass Me By. In fact, what I did in the end is I had no way of organising this. So what I did is I typed up all the titles into a sort of grid, cut them all out with scissors and just put them on the table. And I just moved them all around. That's the only way I could do it. It's, sometimes paper's the only way of organising yourself. I couldn't find any other way of doing it. So it just sort of went off at that point.
Can I just ask, at one point in the whole exercise, did your wife walk in on you and say, what on earth are you doing?
Yeah, you know what? Most people don't recognise the song titles, and actually, it's one of those key things I do. If you ever meet someone and you want to have a Beatles conversation, you must have this way. You want to talk about it, and I always say, "Oh, what do you think?" And I always use the continuing story of Bungalow Bill as the start off. And when they go, "I don't know what you're talking about," I think, "Yeah, this conversation's over then," because you don't actually know what you're talking about.
The famous Bungalow Bill test.
By the way, I did get rid of Bungalow Bill. I told you that, didn't I? I do like that song, but again, it was a matter of came down to choices.
Just think something we've talked about a few times is like the diversity of the album and what exactly represents the diversity of the project itself. Well, that's lovely. I mean, I prefer your White Album to mine, I think.
Try playing it.
Did I say we should quickly read out our full track listing just in case? Just to finish, we can do that quickly because time is rolling on, isn't it? Okay, so I've got side one, Back in the USSR, Dear Prudence, Obla di Obla da, Wild Honey Pie, Continuing Story of Bungalow Bill, While My Guitar Gently Weeps, Happiness is a Warm Gun. And then side two, I've got Martha, My Dear, Piggies, Blackbird, Your Blues, Don't Pass Me By, Why Don't We Do It in the Road, and Julia. And then side three, Birthday, I'm So Tired, Mother Nature's Son, Everybody's Got Something to Hide, etc., etc. Sexy Sadie, Rocky Raccoon, and Helter Skelter. And then finally, side four, Glass Onion, Savoy Truffle, Not Guilty, Revolution 9, Revolution single version. Can you just read out yours?
Yes, I will. So I've got side one, Back in the USSR, Glass Onion, I'm So Tired, All Things Must Pass, Dear Prudence, I Will, and Julia. And then side two, I've got Revolution single, Wild Honey Pie, Teddy Boy, and then While My Guitar Gently Weeps, Year Blues, followed by What's the New Mary Jane. And then side three is Birthday, Blackbird, Sour Milk Sea, Martha My Dear, Child of Nature, Mother Nature's Son, Piggies, Happiness is a Warm Gun, and Junk. And then my last side is Everybody's Got Something to Hide, Savoy Truffle, Sexy Sadie, Honey Pie, Rocky Raccoon, and Long, Long, Long.
Plus, Can You Take Me Back as a penultimate
just
gesture.
before,
Right, okay, yeah. All right, brilliant. Well, look, so there it is. First entry in our Fantasy Album League, Beatles White Album. Those are our augmented lineups, but what are yours? Feel free to let us know in the comments. Let's see if we can develop have the most pedantic conversation on the internet.
I can imagine people will have an opinion on this.
I should imagine that they will. They'll have an opinion on our choices as well, without a doubt. All right, well, thanks a lot, Peter.
Thank you, Tim. That's been great. I've really enjoyed it.
Me too. And join us next time, everybody, on the Classic Rock and Prog Almanac. I'm having increasing trouble getting the words out. We'll see you next time. So, ta-ra for now.
Bye.